In the vast expanse of rural America, life was often dictated by the immutable rhythms of the land. For countless young men, their entire world was bounded by the fertile fields they tirelessly tilled and the small, close-knit towns they proudly called home. Dreams often stretched no further than the promise of a bountiful next harvest or the simple joy of a local dance on a Saturday night. It was a life of quiet industriousness and predictable cycles, deeply rooted in the soil and the community that sprung from it. The horizons were literally and figuratively close, offering a sense of security, but rarely venturing into the unknown. Yet, for one particular farm boy, the physical and metaphorical horizon would dramatically expand, pulling him irrevocably from the quiet solitude of agricultural labor into the thunderous, chaotic roar of a global conflict. This war would test the very limits of human ingenuity, courage, and resilience. This unassuming start, far from any battlefield, would inadvertently set the stage for an extraordinary and almost unbelievable chapter in the annals of aerial combat, transforming a humble beginning into a legend. The devastating surprise attack on Pearl Harbor on that fateful December morning shattered the cherished illusion of American isolation, irrevocably altering the destinies of millions, even those who had never seen an ocean, much less a naval fleet. News of the profound devastation traveled swiftly, reaching even the most remote corners of the nation, igniting a fervent and unified patriotism, a collective call to arms that resonated from coast to coast. Suddenly, the quiet, personal aspiration of farm life, the harvests, the families, the community events, were completely dwarfed by a colossal global imperative. The world had irrevocably changed overnight. Young men who had previously only thought of the mechanics of tractors, the health of livestock, and the changing seasons, now found their imaginations consumed by visions of themselves in uniform, ready and eager to defend their country against a formidable and distant enemy. This profound and rapid collective shift from the comfortable predictability of peace to the urgent demands of war dramatically transformed the national psyche, laying the groundwork for personal sacrifices and extraordinary acts of heroism that would ultimately come to define an entire generation. Our farm boy, like so many others, was no exception. The war's distant, ominous drums now echoed directly and inescapably in his heartland home, demanding an answer. Eager and resolute in his desire to contribute to the war effort, the young man from the farm found himself irresistibly drawn to the infinite expanse of the skies. He soon enlisted in the Army Air Forces, a world entirely alien and distant from the familiar, comforting scent of fertile earth and ripening crops. The transition from the laborious, grounded act of plowing fields to the exhilarating, high-stakes responsibility of piloting advanced war machinery was nothing short of immense, demanding a complete reorientation of his skills and perspective. He willingly traded his worn work boots for sleek flight boots and the quiet, rhythmic hum of a tractor engine for the deafening, visceral roar of powerful aircraft engines. Training was not merely rigorous, it was an unrelenting crucible, demanding a precision of movement, an acute spatial awareness, and a mental fortitude he hadn't known he possessed. Every lesson learned, every complex maneuver patiently mastered, was a crucial, deliberate step towards an unknown, perilous future, meticulously preparing him for the brutal realities of aerial battles against an enemy renowned for its tenacity, skill, and sheer ferocity. It was here, amidst the demanding circuits and simulated dogfights, in the crucible of this intensive training, that the barely discernible seeds of his future legend were first sown. As sharp-eyed instructors began to notice an unusual, almost prodigious flair in his flying technique. Among his peers, many of whom came from far more urban or mechanically inclined backgrounds, our farm boy quickly and consistently distinguished himself not just through sheer dedication and tireless effort, but through a seemingly innate, almost mystical connection with his aircraft. He developed an incredibly intuitive understanding of complex aerodynamics, subtle air currents, and the precise mechanical capabilities and limitations of his planes. He pushed the boundaries of these flying machines in ways that often genuinely astonished, and sometimes even unnerved his seasoned instructors. He wasn't merely executing maneuvers. He was dancing with the aircraft, making it feel like a natural, responsive extension of his own will and thought. It was during these extensive and demanding training exercises that he began to experiment with highly unusual maneuvers, unconventional approaches that often raised skeptical eyebrows, but consistently, almost miraculously, achieved superior and more effective results than standard protocols. This burgeoning, seemingly natural skill hinted strongly at a unique, almost prodigious gift that transcended standard flight instruction and textbook knowledge. It suggested he possessed a truly singular talent, one that would soon be tested in the ultimate, unforgiving arena of combat, where such innovation could mean the difference between life and death. His assignment eventually led him deep into the unforgiving, sun-drenched skies of the Pacific Theater, a realm utterly dominated by fierce, often brutal dogfights and relentless air-to-air combat, where the stakes were always life and death. The Japanese Zero, a marvel of lightweight design and maneuverability renowned for its speed and agility, was the formidable adversary, and early American pilots frequently faced an uphill battle against its superior turning radius and climb rate. The initial days were marked by intensely fluid, chaotic engagements where survival often came down to a split-second decision, a daring gamble, or sheer luck. Our farm boy, now a fully fledged combat pilot with the weight of responsibility on his young shoulders, quickly learned that the theoretical lessons and sanitized simulations of flight school paled in comparison to the brutal, visceral realities of war. The stakes were impossibly high with every mission, and every single sortie was an intimate, dangerous dance with death, pushing both man and machine to their absolute breaking point against a truly determined, skilled, and seemingly inexhaustible enemy. The Pacific was a world away from his farm, and infinitely more dangerous. It was on one particularly desperate sun-baked mission, deep over enemy territory, that the now legendary impossible trick first dramatically emerged from the crucible of necessity. Outnumbered severely, with multiple bogies on his tail and facing a relentless, closing swarm of enemy fighters, conventional aerial tactics seemed utterly suicidal, a slow path to certain doom. In a moment of pure, desperate adrenaline and audacious, almost insane ingenuity, our pilot vividly remembered a dangerously risky maneuver he had only briefly practiced in the most isolated corners of his training, one that fundamentally bent the conventional rules of standard aerodynamics, an act of defiance against the very laws of physics as understood by most pilots. It was a move so counterintuitive, so inherently dangerous, and so unorthodox that most seasoned pilots would immediately deem it a suicidal gamble, an act of madness. But cornered, with his oxygen mask growing heavy and completely out of viable options, he executed it with a sudden, precise movement of stick and rudder. He turned what appeared to be certain, fiery doom into a startling, almost magical advantage, completely baffling his experienced opponents and allowing him to escape an otherwise fatal trap. With uncanny grace and speed, it was a moment that would forever change his destiny and the course of that particular engagement. The essence of the trick was revolutionary in its simplicity and terrifying in its execution. A lightning-fast, highly controlled stall maneuver that allowed his P-40 to seemingly halt, almost hang motionless, in midair for a crucial, split-second interval. This momentary suspension effectively caused his pursuing adversaries to dramatically overshoot their target, clearing his tail. He could then, with incredible speed and precision, regain full control for a decisive counterattack, often from a position of unexpected advantage. It was a risky, almost poetic dance on the very edge of disaster, demanding not just perfect timing, but an incredibly intuitive knowledge of his aircraft's precise stall characteristics and recovery capabilities. Crucially, no pilot before him had successfully or consistently implemented such a high-stakes maneuver in actual, full-throttle combat. It fundamentally defied the conventional wisdom of aerial dogfighting, which typically emphasized maintaining speed, predictable trajectories, and energy retention. His fellow pilots, initially watching with a mixture of awe and stark disbelief, soon clamored for explanation as he repeatedly used this impossible move to escape certain fiery death and, more remarkably, to swiftly turn the tables on his surprised and frustrated adversaries. It was a game changer that left them speechless. Word of the impossible trick began to spread like an unstoppable wildfire across all the Allied airfields of the Pacific Theater, quickly becoming a whispered legend. Other pilots, initially steeped in healthy skepticism and trained in rigid tactical doctrines, soon clamored to understand the deeply guarded secret behind this unassuming farm boy's improbable and repeated survival against superior numbers. He patiently and meticulously demonstrated the technique, explaining the intricate nuances of its precise execution, the delicate balance of speed, altitude, and rudder input. However, few, if any, could truly replicate its exact timing, its inherent daring, and the almost preternatural feel for the aircraft that he possessed. It required not just exceptional skill and hundreds of hours of flight time, but an inherent, almost primal fearlessness and an almost spiritual connection with the aircraft itself, an intuitive understanding of its every creak and groan. The maneuver quickly became his signature, a terrifying, elusive ghost that would appear suddenly, vanish momentarily from sight, and then dramatically reappear behind his stunned, disoriented adversaries, leaving them completely vulnerable. It was more than a mere tactical innovation. It was a profound extension of his unique battlefield philosophy, a personal challenge to the conventional wisdom of air combat. The day of the truly legendary engagement finally arrived, ushered in by grim intelligence reports. These indicated a massive, overwhelming enemy formation, of veritable armada of Japanese aircraft heading directly towards a critical Allied naval position and an adjacent airfield. The air on the ground was thick with palpable tension, and the odds were stacked heavily, almost impossibly, against the numerically inferior American defenders. Our farm boy, alone in his P-40 due to a critical and unfortunate mechanical issue that had grounded the rest of his squadron, faced an agonizing decision. Despite the immense risks, he made the audacious, almost unthinkable decision to intercept the overwhelming enemy force, fully aware he would be facing potentially dozens of aircraft all alone. He knew the personal risks were immense, perhaps even suicidal, but retreat in the face of such a threat was simply not an option in his mind. He knew the personal risks were immense, perhaps even suicidal, but retreat in the face of such a threat was simply not an option in his mind. He meticulously prepared himself, strapping into his cockpit, his mind utterly focused and his senses acutely heightened, knowing with absolute certainty that the fate of the entire mission, and potentially the lives of countless sailors and ground personnel, rested solely on his shoulders and the mastery of his impossible trick. What followed in the ensuing moments was an aerial ballet of unprecedented scale, audacity, and sheer, raw courage, plunging fearlessly into the very heart of the massive Japanese formation. The lone P-40 became a whirlwind of precision, speed, and concentrated destruction. Our pilot executed his impossible trick with breathtaking frequency and flawless execution, effectively confusing and utterly disorienting the waves of enemy fighters. Japanese pilots, rigidly accustomed to predictable patterns of engagement and standard evasive maneuvers, found themselves facing an enemy that utterly defied all logical expectation, appearing and disappearing as if by magic from their gun sights. His P-40 seemed to be everywhere at once, a terrifying, elusive phantom tormenting the enemy ranks, sowing chaos and doubt. Each daring, gravity-defying stall, each impossible, whip-like turn, allowed him to consistently gain a decisive tactical advantage, systematically turning the overwhelming numerical superiority of the enemy into a chaotic and utterly untenable disadvantage. He was a force multiplier of one, weaving a tapestry of destruction against an enemy that couldn't comprehend his tactics, leading to widespread disarray among their ranks. Against all logic and every conceivable military doctrine, the lone pilot began to systematically dismantle the massive enemy formation, one after another. Japanese planes, caught by surprise or unable to counter his unpredictable tactics, fell dramatically from the sky, victims of his audacious maneuvers and uncanny, almost supernatural skill. The impossible trick, deployed with deadly precision and unfailing accuracy, not only broke the enemy's tight formations, but also began to shatter their collective morale. turning their offensive into a defensive struggle for survival. He wasn't simply fighting for his life. He was out-hinking, outmaneuvering, and psychologically defeating an entire squadron single-handedly, relying not on brute force or overwhelming firepower, but on cunning, innovation, and a deep, instinctive understanding of his aircraft. The entire scene, unfolding high above the Pacific, was almost cinematic in its scale and heroism, a single, resolute hero pitted against a seemingly endless legion, rewriting the very rules of aerial combat with every precise bullet fired and every impossible, gravity-defying turn executed. His solo stand became a turning point, a testament to the power of one individual's determination against overwhelming odds. Defying all expectations and calculations of the conflict, he was a whirlwind, an unstoppable force. By the time he returned to base, his P4OA miraculous testament to resilience, riddled with countless bullet holes, chunks of metal torn away, and its fuselage showing significant battle scars, but somehow still miraculously flying, the true, astonishing extent of his single-handed victory began to dramatically emerge. Initial reports and subsequent confirmations indicated that over 40 Japanese planes were either confirmed destroyed or severely damaged, a staggering, almost unbelievable achievement for a single pilot, especially one flying alone against such overwhelming, suicidal odds. The sheer numbers were so improbable that they prompted initial, understandable skepticism from commanders and intelligence officers. However, the skepticism quickly gave way to profound awe and widespread admiration as multiple witness accounts, both from ground observers who saw the aerial chaos unfold and from returning friendly aircraft who caught glimpses of the fight, fully corroborated the incredible, unprecedented feat. His impossible trick had not only miraculously saved his own life against impossible odds, but had also fundamentally disrupted and ultimately defeated a major enemy offensive, turning the tide of that particular engagement decisively in the Allies' favor. It was a victory for the ages. The unassuming farm boy, who once quietly dreamed of successful harvests and the simple rhythms of rural life, was now transformed unequivocally into a genuine legend of the skies. His extraordinary bravery, unwavering resolve, and unparalleled, almost instinctive skill in the cockpit earned him the highest accolades and the most prestigious military decorations his country could bestow. Yet, for him, the greatest, most profound reward was the deep, internal knowledge that he had done his part, and indeed, far more than anyone could have ever asked. He had faced the ultimate test and emerged victorious. He instantly became a powerful, enduring symbol of American ingenuity, resourcefulness, and indomitable determination in the absolute face of overwhelming adversity. His incredible, singular story served as a profoundly powerful morale booster, inspiring countless other servicemen and civilians alike to truly believe that with sufficient courage, unconventional thinking, and an unyielding will, even the most impossible odds could be miraculously overcome. From the quiet, peaceful fields of his youth to the furious, deadly skies of the Pacific, his remarkable journey became an unforgettable testament to the unexpected heroes, often forged in the intense crucible of total war. Beyond the immediate glory of the medals and the widespread recognition, the profound legacy of the farm boy's impossible trick endured, echoing far beyond the battlefields of the Pacific. It didn't just win a single battle. It fundamentally altered aerial combat doctrine across the Allied forces, prompting other pilots and strategists to actively explore new, often unconventional and daring maneuvers that had previously been dismissed as too risky or impossible. It taught a crucial, hard-won lesson that sometimes, in the most dire of circumstances, truly breaking the established rules and conventional wisdom is not only permissible, but can be the only effective way to secure victory. His audacious, gravity-defying feat redefined what was considered physically possible and tactically viable in a dogfight, inspiring future generations of fighter pilots to think boldly outside the confines of the established flight manual and to constantly push the absolute limits of their aircraft and, more importantly, their own capabilities. The innovative spirit of his audacity continued to powerfully echo through the skies, and through flight schools long after the war itself had ended, profoundly influencing tactical development and forever reminding everyone of the sheer, transformative power of individual brilliance coupled with unshakable courage. The farm boy's name, while perhaps not as widely recognized in popular history as some of the more prominent figures of World War II, became synonymous with unparalleled courage, groundbreaking innovation, and an unwavering, unbreakable resolve within the most respected military circles and among those who truly understood aerial combat. His impossible feat, a singular act of defiance against overwhelming odds, stands as an enduring testament to the extraordinary capabilities that can be discovered within ordinary individuals when they are faced with truly desperate and seemingly insurmountable circumstances. It is a story of unexpected greatness. From the quiet, predictable life on the farm, surrounded by the rhythm of seasons and the scent of freshly turned earth, to the deafening, chaotic roar of aerial combat in the distant Pacific, his remarkable journey is a powerful, inspiring reminder that true heroes often emerge from the most unexpected places and backgrounds. It teaches us that sometimes the greatest, most decisive victories are won not just with overwhelming strength or superior numbers, but with an audacious, pioneering spirit that utterly refuses to accept the perceived limitations of the known. Pushing humanity's boundaries, his story is a perpetual beacon of what is truly possible when ingenuity fiercely meets absolute necessity. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe for more historical content like this.